In this movie, we're going to take a look at the mist control here in the blur palette. If you're not very familiar with the blur and sharpen controls, I urge you to go back and watch in this chapter the movie on blur and sharpen, because mist works interactively with these controls and you need to know those in order to use mist effectively. And we're picking up from the end of that movie where we've already got some settings defined here. And notice when I switch into mist, the settings I had defined for core softness and level stick here with mist, but they're inaccessible. But typically when I'm using mist, I'm not really in here working with core softness and levels. I leave them at their default, and I'm only working with the tools that are accessible when I'm in mist, which is radius, HV ratio, scaling, and mix. And let's go down 2 shots in this timeline, and let's take a look and see if we can figure out what mist will do for us. So I'm going to option F. We're on a node that's already doing something, so I'm going to option S, add a new node just for the mist operation. Remember, under mist, scaling is active, meaning it only works when we're sharpening. So I'll drop down this radius control, and I'll put a lot of sharpening on here. Command D, on and off. So we've got a lot of sharpening going on here, but I'm also sharpening up a lot of detail in her face that I don't necessarily want to grab. But I do like the sharpening around her eyes. So maybe what I'm going to do is kick up the scaling a little bit more just to accentuate her eyes a little more. And now I'm going to come back to the mix control, and this is the combination of tools that makes this mist setting work. Sharpening added, maybe a little scaling, though not necessarily, and then come down to mix and back it off. Let's take a look at this exact setup, but with mix set at 100, only doing some sharpening. So I'm going to Command Y, create a new version. And now I'm going to set mix back to 100. And now I'm going to Command B to go to the previous version where mix was set lower. And that's with mix set at 72. Now Command N to the next version. That's with mix set at default with just pure sharpening without any of the mist applied. So I'm going to bounce between these two. And you can see that if I Command D with mist enabled, that's where we started. I'll turn it back on. So I've added some sharpening, but only sharpened the areas that I really wanted, which is her eyes, and left her skin tones largely alone. And this is kind of what the mist is supposed to replicate, that kind of feel, that kind of look, and is often used here on beauty shots, especially as they apply to skin tones and to peoples and faces. I think you can see how there's a lot of functionality built here into the blur palette, that you could spend a lot of time digging in here, working with individual color channels. You can isolate these operations with HSL qualifications, with power windows. There's all sorts of nifty things you can do here with the blur, sharpen, and mist tools. And I encourage you to experiment. If you're following along with the exercise files, I've got shot 2 here as another good shot to experiment with playing with high frequency details and playing with your scaling and your softness and your levels. So have fun experimenting with this set of tools. You'll find they come in handy all the time.